posts up there, which will be very quick. Let me check for sound and picture. Yeah, it didn't log in yet. There we go. Posts up there. Okay, we got sound and picture. Give me a minute before you post in the chat, please. Please don't post in the chat till I tell you I have my posts up, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm done. Post away. Okay, today's 22nd of March. It's 9:50 in the morning. No, 9:50. And we got a nice day. It's 60, what is it? 62, high of 66, which isn't going to be very high. I don't think gonna have a lot of rain. Tomorrow's going to be about the same thing. It goes down to the low 50s at night. And Sunday the same, and then Monday the same. And then Tuesday we go into the 70s, and by Thursday we'll be into the 80s. And so I think our spring is here. I hope we get a good 8 or 10 weeks of spring like last year. We had a good 10 weeks. It's beautiful here in springtime. It's gorgeous. But then it gets hot. Usually late May or June it starts getting hot. By July it's very hot. Chances of rain today are pretty much non-existent, and there are extremely low chances of rain through the end of the month and even into April. So I think we're finished with the rain, but we've had so much rain. I gotta open the window, guys. Hold on a minute. I can't stand on this floor. It's so slippery. I generally mop the floors once a day because the dogs live here and they come in with the mud from the yard, and I like to clean it up. Okay, and other things. All right, so being a Bible believing site, I'm going to do some praise now. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Let's see if I can do something with these glasses. They got some junk on them. Hang on a second. They got coffee on there or something. It's pretty good. All right. So we have really, really, really big news now, especially if you're a student of Bible prophecy. If you're not, it's minor interest. With all the trouble in America, with the illegals and attacks on the water system and electrical systems, and yesterday or today or late at night, Instagram people were getting their accounts logged out against their wishes, lots of them. And, this stuff is happening all over the place, okay? So they're going to be mildly interested, if at all, over what's happening in the Middle East because they don't understand Israel is the key to prophecy. They don't get it, okay? And, how many people in America know it's a daughter of Babylon? 1%, 2%, maybe, very small. Very, very small. Okay. So we'll start with some intel, and then after I finish the intel, we'll do Bible prophecy. I'm striving hard to reduce the size of these videos, these live streams. I don't want them to, if I can get them down to 45 minutes, it'd be great. I doubt I can. But I can get them to between an hour and a half. So I'm going to keep trying to get them shorter, but I'm not going to keep the message, from going forth. As I've been explaining end times, and if those of you who've been following me know, I've been very, very correct as to what's going to happen. Starting with this October 7th thing, I've been quite on, okay? And the more right on I get, and the more, the less my offerings are. People don't want to hear this. It's the truth. It comes true. And they want to listen, but they don't want to give me offerings because I'm teaching them what's really happening. And they don't like it. And these are not people deemed for the kingdom, okay? They don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear the lies and get false security, like a lot of these people that run around saying they're Israel, okay? And they're going to be saved. Well, Israel itself, Yeshua speaking to the Pharisees and Sadducees said, I know you're Abraham's children. He knew they were of Israel, but they're not headed for the kingdom. Okay? So you can go establish that you have some kind of Israel roots, or you could go ascribe to some crazy doctrines like the Protocols of Zion, British Israelism, Black Hebrews, and other crazy theories that are not biblically based. They don't come from the Bible. And, play games with who the lost tribes are and all of this stuff. And, where's it going to get you? Nowhere. Because you have to have the true gospel. If you have the true gospel, which I've been preaching to you, you have to deal with the fact that the Jew first, then the Greek, the good and the bad. The true gospel's the good. So if you're getting the true gospel and you believe it and you're walking in it, you probably are really Israel in two respects. One, the physical, and you don't know it. And two, the spiritual. Okay? But if you're not of Israel physically, you're just spiritually in the true gospel, then you become incorporated into Israel. This is reflected in Ezekiel chapters 47, the last three verses. When we have the second Exodus, the strangers become incorporated permanently to the tribe they came to Israel with and lived with, and they receive an equal inheritance with the physical descendants of Israel. But at that time, that time is short. So anyway, look, what I'm going to explain to you today should open up to you that the two witnesses are extremely close, days maybe, okay, maybe a few weeks or something, but really close. And this is foreign to the church people and the ones that, now if you stop going to the church and you listen to the church preachers and you believe what they're preaching, you're still in the church. You don't have the true gospel. You're rejecting knowledge and clinging to lies, okay? And Yeshua says, if you reject knowledge, I will reject you. And I'm not telling you to reject, to accept my preachings. I'm telling you, per se, I'm telling you to accept the scriptures I'm giving you. 98, 99% of what I give you on the Bible, I read you the scriptures. Okay? So you're not rejecting me, you're rejecting the scriptures. And some of them are very clear, like John 6, 39, 40, 44, and 54. That explains clearly there's no left behind rapture, and everyone that the Father gave to Yeshua goes up on the same day, the last day. And to keep it simple, the last day means there's no more days. So that's after the millennium's over, Satan's released and gathers them like the sand of the sea around Jerusalem and New Jerusalem Father God from heaven burns the whole universe up. There's no place to stand, so we meet them in the air and we go up on the clouds to heaven, the heavenly clouds to heaven. And that's the last day. And that's the rapture. There is no pre-trib, there is no mid-trib, there is no post-trib, there is no left behind rapture. It doesn't exist. You can't see it in the Bible. It's pastors open it up to you, you know. He will deliver you from the wrath to come. Well, what does that mean? I mean, you know, does that mean you're getting raptured up to heaven? I mean, it's the theater of the absurd. Okay, to what happened? America went to the UN Security Council yesterday with a draft proposal. Now, the Security Council is the enforcement arm of the UN, not the General Assembly. Forget that. This is the real thing. Okay? And his draft proposal calls for an immediate ceasefire with Gaza, on the part of Israel, of course, and an increase in humanitarian aid and the return of the hostages, although the wording is not crystal clear, that it doesn't say the return of the hostages has to come before the ceasefire. Biden was very slippery. So they could say, you know, an immediate ceasefire and then they have to return the hostages. Now, we don't know how many hostages they have. We don't know their names. We don't know where they are. They've even said they're not sure where they are. They're not sure how many they have. They're not sure how many are alive. They refuse to let the Red Cross minister to them or even meet them or see them. So this whole thing, they could say, well, we found 11 hostages, you know. Or they could refuse to return the hostages and they still have the ceasefire. What do you think the UN's going to do? Send 25 or 50,000 troops in there to find the hostages? They'll do nothing. Let me give you a case in point. UNFIL. That's the UN agency that was sent. It's the UN, the same thing. It was sent to Lebanon to enforce the 2006 ruling that the UN came up with, that the Hezbollah shall not be south of the Litani River, which is 17 to 18 miles north of the Lebanon-Israel border. Hezbollah has ignored it. There were videos of Hezbollah shooting rockets or shoulder-fired missiles 25 meters from the UN troops, and they did nothing about it. Nothing. Nothing. And the Hezbollah's been operating for what, 4 or 5 months, and they do nothing about it. And they're in violation of the UN mandate by their location in Lebanon. Fast forward to, let's say this thing passes in the UN, which I'm pretty sure it will. Because America's been the only one opposing it. Now, I'm going to explain to you what the Muslims want, but give it a minute first. To make this work, they're going to have to put troops inside Gaza. Why? Because if they just make a piece of paper, what's going to happen? Hamas, of course, will never return the hostages. They'll keep stealing the humanitarian aid. They'll keep using human shields, which is not mentioned in the UN draft that America submitted. And they will continue to take advantage of the ceasefire and fire missiles into Israel. I would say you've got probably no more than a 2-week period until they start shooting missiles into Israel. There's 4 battalions of Hamas still functional and alive and well in Rafah. Now, I was never in the military. Let me look up what a battalion is. Now, you have to bear in mind, a battalion can vary from country to country. I'll try to see if we can find out what Hamas calls a battalion. I never read this in the media. might be able to get it. Hold on. I think I can do it with arithmetic. Let me see what happens. Hold on. Waiting for it to load. Well, when it started, there were 26 battalions. And they estimate with the PIJ and Hamas to be about 50,000 at start. So we'll just run the math and we'll get it. So you got 50,000 divided by, I believe the number was 26. No, that didn't come out right. Hold on. 50, 1, 2, 3. Divided by 26. 1923. So let's say 2,000. So they got 8,000 Hamas still intact in Rafah. And there's probably, as a guess, a good 5,000 floating around the rest of Gaza. So they got 10 or 12,000. That's enough to keep attacking Israel. Remember, troops will be put in Gaza to stop Israel from going back in to Gaza to rout them out and kill them again. Do you think Israel is going to bomb their locations from planes, dropping bombs or shooting missiles or shooting artillery, when you know Hamas is going to locate themselves very close to these UN troops? I'll give you a written guarantee that these UN troops will never fire on Hamas for shooting missiles, rockets, shoulder-fired rockets, sniper shootings, anything. I can promise you they will never fire on Gaza, on the Hamas, as evidenced by what's going on in Lebanon right to this very minute, or this day. So they will have a human shield, courtesy of Biden, of foreign troops, protecting them from Israeli attacks, and they will not ever protect Israel from them attacking us. There is nothing in here talking about Egypt stopping the flow of weapons and concrete and materials into Gaza. Nothing. 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 Okay? So it's clearly an attempt to preserve Hamas to kill Jews again another day. You have a better theory? Put it up in the chat. I'd love to hear it. Let me look at the chat and see what's going on in there for a second. I asked if people wanted to be moderators, and I didn't get anybody. Okay. So I like to wear the sunglasses. It cuts the glare. And it's got a spiritual warfare thing too. Anyway, let's move forward. So what the Arabs are saying is this: we are not happy about the clause for release of hostages. We want an immediate ceasefire, and then, we'll pick the pieces up later, which means the hostages never come back. Biden is the best ally Hamas ever had. Now, we're today in the second Friday of Ramadan, so let me think when we started. The 10th, 12th day. We're almost 2 weeks into Ramadan. And it's been the quietest Ramadan I can remember of my many years in Israel. Why? Why? Because Iran funds the terrorists in Israel and the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas and PIJ and these people and the other Arab states that hate us also. And America and Europe and the UN and the UNWRA and so forth, they fund it. They fund the Palestinian Authority. Why has it been so quiet? Because about, a week before Ramadan, Biden mysteriously out of nowhere released $10 billion with a B, not million, $billion of funds that belonged to Iran that were being frozen in different banks around the world due to sanctions. Biden just signed a piece of paper and lifted the sanctions, and the money reverts back to Iran. Now, instead of me telling you what to do, we know that this is the most quiet Ramadan in many, many years. And we know Biden gave them a release on that $10 billion. He put $10 billion back in their coffers. Now, we haven't been seeing attacks since this happened, we haven't been seeing any meaningful attacks at all, or maybe one or two small attacks on the American bases in Iraq and Syria. This is objective. The uprisings in Israel are very quiet. The Lebanon war hasn't expanded. So, do you think Biden paid Iran the $10 billion so that we would have a quiet Ramadan so he can negotiate some sort of ceasefire with Israel? I do. You're up to your own. You could draw your own conclusions, but that's what I think. I have no explanation why this lunatic Biden would give them $10 billion in the middle of this when they're killing and trying to kill his own troops in Iraq and Syria. And this was dealt with very quietly in mainstream media, by the way, but it's real. You could look it up. Biden is the biggest enemy Israel had since 1948. Well, not really, no, but it's a big enemy, and he's going to get worse, according to Bible prophecy. Now we need to talk about the pier, this temporary pier he put in for humanitarian aid. This is the plan for the humanitarian aid. As ships come, probably big ships, 40,000 tons, 30, 20, I don't know. Big ships come with humanitarian aid. You can't dock up to the pier in Gaza with a big ship because they need a deep water pier. These ships could go down 25 feet in the waterline. I mean, they need to have depth. Okay? If they go down 25 feet, and some go down 30, 40 feet, if if it's 25 feet, they're gonna want to have 40 feet or something like that, because the tides change, and they don't unload a boat in 10 minutes. They'll be there all day unloading the boat, maybe all night. So the tide changes. They don't want to hit bottom. So they're going to stay offshore. How far? Maybe a half a mile, 2 miles, not too far. Probably 2 miles is a bit much. And they're going to use smaller boats that probably only need 5 or 6 or 8 feet of water. And they're going to offload the cases of humanitarian aid using cranes, I expect, probably from a door in the hull of the boat. They could bring the stuff down and put it out and get it on the small boats. And they'll probably have a pretty good amount of small boats, maybe 15 or something. Small boats will probably be 25 to 40 feet, something like that. And they'll be able to hold a reasonable amount of cases of humanitarian aid, which would be fuel for cooking, fuel like diesel and gasoline fuel, medical supplies and equipment, and food and bottled water. So they could shuffle large amounts of humanitarian aid to the pier. Now, this is the stupidity of the whole situation that shows you this is just a sham to get the pier there. Okay? It's not rocket science. It's easy to understand. Remember, I live in Israel. Okay? The problem with the humanitarian aid now is it predominantly comes in by truck. They tried doing with parachutes. Here's the problem. They were parachuting it onto the beach in the hope that Hamas wouldn't be able to control the beach in the south very well. On that count, they were correct. The Hamas people don't want to come out in the open, away from the tunnels and so forth. All right. As they were parachuting the aid, they realize that they need to, um, they had to have some reasonable altitude, giving the parachute time to open and slow the descent of the packages down and make for a soft landing. And they found out that there were wind currents, because this is a beach in the Mediterranean, that were not very gentle. They were pretty strong, and they would, we're not talking 40-mile-an-hour winds, but, probably 12, 15, something like that, 8, enough to move the parachute out to sea. So the parachutes were landing in the ocean, and they were using fishermen with small boats, and even swimmers were going out grabbing the humanitarian aid. But it was, by the time they got out there, it was in water, and I guess some of it sank to the bottom, which I don't know if they might have dived down to get it if if they only had to go 15, 20 feet, maybe they just went down and snorkeled or something and went and got it. Um, but the food got, a lot of it got waterlogged. Now, bottles of water are not going to get waterlogged, and some of these MREs and sealed cans are not going to get waterlogged and stuff like that. Okay. Medical supplies could have been a problem, fuel, I don't know. But they didn't like that idea. So then various countries started coming in low and dropping the parachutes low, so the amount of time for descent would be limited and the wind wouldn't blow it off course that much because it wasn't dropping down from the sky from so high. What happened then is the parachutes, maybe due to the wind, were failing to open, and the packages were coming down and hitting Gazans in the head. Why they stood there waiting for this, I don't know, but they not brightest lights in the harbor. So that got Mox nixed because they killed 10 people with these airdrops like that. So let's go to the trucks. That's how it originally started. And this is going to show you the idiocy of believing what Biden and Netanyahu were telling us about the pier. Note, I said Netanyahu also. The large boats put the product on small boats. They bring it to the pier. They offload it on the pier. Then when they're on the pier, they probably have forklifts, pallets, whatever, get the stuff onto trucks, and then the trucks truck it into Gaza. Now, the idiocy of this is that the reason they went to airdrops is the trucks were not working. We documented this with videos and pictures and everything. Hamas was stealing the food from the Gazan people, using it for themselves, stockpiling it, and selling it, the excess, back to the Gazan people who were given it for free. They stole it and then sell it back to them at exorbitantly high prices. Nobody ever died from starvation yet in Gaza. So Hamas itself was the ones interfering with humanitarian aid, not Israel. And when the trucks would come in, the Gazan people were attacking the trucks as soon as they got into Gaza and ripping all the supplies off they could carry away. So Hamas started sending soldiers there to stop this, shooting in the air. They even killed a guy by shooting him, beating him with clubs and stuff like that to keep them from getting the food so they could have it. So Hamas is the guilty party for stopping humanitarian aid that was coming in by trucks. So the trucks don't work. Now, the light bulb goes off. The ships don't do anything because it goes to the pier and then it goes on a truck. So it has to pass through Gaza. So Hamas is going to hijack it and the civilians are going to steal it. It's not going to change anything. You got it? I think so. So the pier is just a lie, a cover story, and Netanyahu didn't balk about it. Ah, conspiracy. Why didn't Netanyahu open up a mouth about this? Why didn't he just say, no, I object, this is stupid, all this is going to do is it's going to go by truck ultimately anyway, and the same problem is going to happen. We have to stop Hamas, and then we could feed the people. That's the true version that wasn't told in the media. Anyway, okay? So, the pier is a sham. What are they trying to do with the pier? Well, the pier is there to land troops in Israel. It's not finished getting set up yet. But large transport ships, probably, I don't know, they could just be regular troops. They could use Expeditionary Force Marines, and I don't know. They'll pull up and they'll offload troops and equipment to the pier. Now, the Expeditionary Force ships, I think, could actually. No, they can't get that close to the shore. So the pier would work if they put, let's say, 3 to 5,000 Marines in there with it to conduct the actual distribution of the humanitarian aid. Hamas, in this state of decay, would probably be very reluctant to start shooting at the U.S. Marines. However, they might. The U.S. Marines are not going to be savvy like the Israeli soldiers about fighting these people. They're not going to have air support like Israeli troops have. They're not going to have artillery support to speak of. And they're probably going to be told to stand down and not fight against Hamas. Because if they fight against Hamas, it's going to look to the Muslim world that America did a sham, and they just did this to help Israel kill Hamas. Can you understand that? And that's the last thing that that Biden wants. Okay, so that explains the pier. It's tied to this ceasefire. The ceasefire is a worthless piece of paper that won't be abided by unless enforcement troops are put in. And these enforcement troops, judging by what's going on in Lebanon with Hezbollah, will not fire under any circumstances on Hamas. Do I think America would make them not have ammo for their guns? No. They'd probably have them, no round in the chamber or no clip in the chamber. If Hamas tries to massacre them, they'll probably be able to defend themselves. But if Hamas just shoots rockets and missiles into Israel, they'll be told to stand down and do nothing, just report it, in which case nothing will happen. Now, what will they do if Israel starts shooting missiles and rockets back and artillery back at Hamas? Well, I don't know what they would do, but it's sort of a moot point because they're going to put themselves in extremely close proximity. Hamas is going to put themselves in extremely close proximity to these UN troops. So Israel will be afraid to shoot missiles and artillery at them and drop bombs because they could create collateral damage in troops. Now, France already came out and said they're locked into the U.S. plan. They didn't use those words, but they support it. So I suspect it has a good chance of passing the UN, but where they're going to kick against it is a precondition of Hamas releasing hostages before the ceasefire. So there's going to be a push from Russia, China, and others to not have that. They're going to push for an immediate ceasefire and then to release the hostages And they're not going to put a provision in there that the ceasefire is null and void if the hostages don't get returned. Believe me, that's not going to be in there. So the hostages are not going to come back. Hamas is going to stay in control of Gaza. This is Biden's plan. And they're going to get ready to build up a war again against Israel, getting supplies and weapons through Egypt. That's not stopping. And that pier is there. So when the UN troops are there, Gaza's going to scream about the blockade. You're listening to me? Israel doesn't let boats pull up to Gaza, and there's no airport there. So the Gazans are going to say, we want to get, people want to send stuff to us. We want to be able to receive boatloads. So Biden and the UN are going to say, sure, go ahead, use our pier. And they're going to get boats in there. They're going to say they're bringing humanitarian aid, and they're going to bring weapons and missiles in there. That's what's going to happen. And Netanyahu let it go down. Now, is Netanyahu working in conspiracy with Biden? That's a school of thought. There's two schools of thought. On October 7th, before then, Biden was saying, no, Netanyahu can't visit here. I don't like him. And then all of a sudden, sometime in September, Biden says, Netanyahu's welcome here. He can come anytime he wants. September 20th, Netanyahu goes and visits Biden. Now, this is weird, right? And then he comes back. And what happens on October 7th? We get an attack from Hamas. I went through this with you guys many times. The soldiers in the lookout posts were calling the command centers of the military and screaming we were being invaded, and the soldiers were laughing at them. Nobody apparently was taking the images on the cameras on the border seriously. Okay? And these soldiers got killed and taken hostage. And then they got into the people, and there were police there calling for help. Usually the help for such type of an overrunning into Gaza, in terms of helicopters of soldiers coming and soldiers and police coming on, ground vehicles and all of that. Normally I'm told it's 7 or 8 minutes. So let's say 10, 15 minutes maybe, because it was a holiday. They didn't get help for between 7 and 8 hours. I was sitting outside early in the morning preparing for my live stream on October 7th. It was still summertime. I was wearing a t-shirt and shorts. And what happened? I heard all my red alerts on the phone going off like a machine gun. I said, my gosh, Israel's under massive attack. Then I realized that they were coming in from the Gaza area. So I said, well, the idiots started another war. In a few minutes, the jets will bomb them and we'll stop, right? Usually time for that could be 15 minutes, 20 minutes, because it was a holiday, something like that. Not long. Really, 30 minutes would be outrageously long. Nothing happened for about 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours. Then the jets showed up. Does that sound like something's not right? Like a rat in the woodpile to you? Then it appears, so what was the purpose of this? To get Israel infuriated and go after Gaza in a crazy way, which happened, and light up the other countries that are terrorist-oriented and against Israel with more wars, and hopefully they would have Israel wiped out. That was Satan's plan. Didn't work. Of course not. So then it looks like Biden and Netanyahu had a falling out. I think they really did. Netanyahu was worried about his election. Biden's worried about his election. And they were like oil and water. They weren't mixing for a while. And then Biden called Gantz to America maybe 2 weeks ago. Gantz showed up, which was breaking protocol. Gantz is the guy that would step in as prime minister he would get the vote of a no confidence vote against Netanyahu. They'd put Gantz in. Will things be better with Gantz? Absolutely not. Forget that. Would things be different with Gantz? Yeah, he's more left wing. Yeah, things would be different, but not better. Don't get that out of your head. They're all cut out of the same demonic cloth. Don't kid yourself about this. Satan is still God in this world, and that means the leaders of all the countries are with him. Okay, so Netanyahu got scared, and he had to have a pacemaker implanted surgically. Then a lot of this stuff was going on, and then what happened? Well, Netanyahu got scared, and he started turning against Biden, and Biden started bad mouthing him and stuff like that. But I think now they're lined up. Why? Because Netanyahu 100% knows how stupid the pier is, and all he had to do was come out with press releases and say it's going to accomplish nothing, it's going to be a liability. The Palestinians are going to want to bring weapons in there and call it humanitarian aid, and nobody's going to inspect them, and he didn't say anything about it. This pier thing, as I told you, when it happened, is garbage. It's a nonsense alibi story. It's to hurt us. Okay? They don't want to land troops at Ben Gurion Airport and then truck them into Gaza. Gaza, in the eyes of America and the UN, is not Israel. It's an independent state, and they can land in Gaza, and that's not landing in Israel. Just all sinking in how serious this is. You can now take it to the bank that all halavas of lefta, the prophecy about Israel, is completed. Israel now has no friends. Forget it. There are none. None. Moving your embassy to Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem, that means nothing. Abrahamic Accord, that means nothing. They have no friends. Nobody's standing up for Israel anymore. Got it? Nobody. If this doesn't pass the UN Security Council, it's because some of the entities don't want to see the Hamas have to give the hostages back first, because that will, in a small way, make it look like Hamas lost the war, and they have no intentions of getting anything to look that way. They want it to look like Hamas won the war, which is absurd. The place is a waste heap. You can't make any case for them winning the war, but they're going to try it. Okay? Will Netanyahu tell the world that we're not listening to this UN Security Council ruling? We're going to continue the war in Gaza and attack Rafah because they're not giving up the hostages and this and that. I don't know. If he does that, then he's really coming out in the open that he's trying to destroy Israel for Satan. But I don't think he'll break cover and do something like that. He'll say, we got to listen. What are we going to do? What is our choice? The whole world's against us. That's what he'll say. Now, there's another factor here that bears down that's very important, and very few people are going to realize this. And that's the Ultra-Orthodox are supposed to be inducted into the draft. We're talking 1,280,000 ultra-Orthodox in Israel. That's 1.25 million roughly. The Supreme Court wants to know why the draft hasn't already begun, because it was passed into law. Netanyahu is stalling it for political votes from the ultra-Orthodox. They support him, the two political parties, United Torah Judaism and the Shas Party. They have a total of about 15 votes out of 120 total votes in our one-house parliament, or one-house Congress, the Knesset. So they're a substantial player that Netanyahu is afraid to lose. So he is still not yet enforced the draft. Now, if this is I'm giving you the whole picture, that if the thing goes through, the thought of Biden is that Hezbollah will stop the attacks with Israel. And he hopes Israel won't go and invade Hezbollah. But Netanyahu might. There's no noise coming about attacking Lebanon. They don't seem to care about that. And they don't seem to care about Lebanon attacking Israel. Now, are they ever going to force Hezbollah to go back to beyond the Litani River, the UN? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Will Hezbollah now? What Biden's going to say? Well, it's a lasting ceasefire. You know, they might make it 6 weeks, and he'll just tell Hezbollah, "Oh, we'll never let them start it again. Don't worry." So yeah, Hezbollah can very likely stop the war. The Houthis I'm not so sure about, but maybe they'll stop. So the shipping returns to the Red Sea. The attacks on the American troops in Iraq and Syria, coming from the Iranian-backed militia groups in Iraq and Syria, will probably stop. And Biden comes out looking like a hero. There's a chance that the Houthis won't stop attacking the Red Sea and now the Indian Ocean and Sea of Aden and all of that. They may not stop. I don't know. Probably stop, but there's a good chance they won't, but they probably will. So this is the victory Biden needs. Now, he's not going to stop there. What Biden wants, and he's been very graphic about it, is he wants a Palestinian state to be set up, stating that's the only way to have peace. And that means give the West Bank back to the Palestinians, as they like to be called, along with Gaza. And this also calls for some type of a highway to be built from Gaza to the West Bank so they can travel back and forth with vehicles. So he wants Hamas and the Palestinians to have full access to Israel. Okay. Now, I don't think he's going to start right away enforcing the West Bank, but his first priority is stopping the war with Gaza before Gaza gets eliminated, before Hamas gets eliminated. And they're talking about they want the war to end after the Ramadan. They don't want it to resume. So apparently they made a dirty deal with Netanyahu to not attack Rafah during Ramadan. That's rather obvious that that's going on. because he hasn't done it. Many military people have complained a lot in Israel that Netanyahu's dragging the war out with Hamas. He's going too slow. There's also no good reason why he didn't go into Rafah weeks ago. He's dancing with Netanyahu, with Biden again. They're dancing again. They're dancing partners. Or Biden is against Netanyahu, and he figures when they do this, the Houthis will stop, Hezbollah will stop, and the Gaza thing will calm down. And then the people of Israel will not be in a war, and they'll overthrow Netanyahu with a vote of no confidence, putting Gantz in his place. And Gantz has been visiting Biden on 2 occasions, and they probably have an agreement as to how he's going to dance to Biden's music. The people of Israel, if the hostages come back and the war stops, they're probably going to accept it. Maybe 25%, 30% or so will scream bloody murder. The vast majority of Israelis will say, oh, the reservists can return back to their homes, go back to work. They'll buy into it. They'll accept it if the hostages come back. If the hostages don't come back, the Israeli people are going to be livid. Now, the Ultra-Orthodox keep Israel in bondage. So if the war stops, the thought is they won't be drafted because why, right? It'll be easier to get them out from the draft. If the war doesn't stop and the draft goes through, and there's only a limited amount of time Netanyahu could keep the cork in this bottle, then they said they're going to do a mass exodus out of Israel. They're just leeches on Israel, so I don't care if they go or they don't go. I'm not throwing them out, but I'm not going to cry if they go. I'm not saying, oh, I hope they go. I'm not. I'm just saying if they elect to go, I'm not going to cry about it. That's all I'm saying. But it's up to God what happens to them. So this is a big factor in the minds of the world leaders that are cut from the demonic cloth, the same cloth, because these people are keeping Israel in bondage with their teachings from the Talmud and the Kabbalah. And if these, bad shepherds go away, they're worried that Israel will find their way to the Messiah. So this is a huge thing they don't want to see. This is Satan's safety valve, keeping the Israeli people away from the truth with this, right? Extra biblical books that they call the Torah, which are not the Kabbalah, like a witchcraft book, and the Talmud, which says Yeshua is not the Son of God, not a prophet, never rose from the dead, and he's a bastard. And of course, he's not the Messiah. So they're keeping the Israeli public, completely opposed to who Yeshua is. And that, 1,280,000 of them leaving Israel is going to hurt. Well, it's going to be a vulnerability for Satan, in that these people may come into the true gospel. He doesn't want to see that. So this is Netanyahu stalling on activating them into the draft. And this is happening, which is going to mitigate the circumstances because the military will say, well, we don't need them in the army now. We don't have a war. You got it? Now, there's going to be a certain amount of people in Israel that are going to kick against this and say, no, they got to go in. What if there's another war? But I believe the amount of people that are going to be able to kick against that is not very large, and it won't matter. And Netanyahu needs them to fight against Gantz. The ultra right wing may not go with Gantz. They used to have 15 votes combined, the two parties. They might have 20 or 25 now. And then he's got 15 from the Ultra-Orthodox. He's got the Likud party, which is going to give him at least 28 votes or something like that. So he needs 61. He's pretty close, and he just hooks up with a few other people from other small parties, and he's got his 61. Yair Lapid can't stand him. He's not going to get Yair Lapid with the Yesh Atid party, and he's not going to get Benny Gantz's people. And the Ultra-Orthodox are probably never going to go to Benny Gantz because he's more left than Netanyahu. So Netanyahu could actually make it through a vote of no confidence, which keeps the courts off his back for his 3 criminal cases that are actively in trial, but they're not pushing the trial now because he tells the court, I'm in a war, I'm prime minister, I don't have time to deal with this, you got to suspend it till the war's over. So he conveniently a war broke out with Lebanon, which if the Gaza war stops, he could still cry, I got the Lebanese war, you can't make me go to court for trial now. But it appears that the Lebanese war will probably stop. Hezbollah is afraid. Iran keeps trying to bring weapons into Hezbollah. So like I told you yesterday, if Hezbollah really had these advanced, sophisticated missiles like they claim, why the heck was Iran frantically trying to keep bringing them into Lebanon? What's the point of it? They already had them. In one 24-hour or 48-hour period, I think it was, we hit 7 targets in Syria that were, basically involved with Iranian weapons going to Lebanon. So you see all these pieces of the puzzle. So, this is what they're up to, okay? And I do believe there's a high probability that this ceasefire is going to get approved at the UN Security Council. It might have to be that the hostages come after the ceasefire, which means it'll never happen. I don't know. Will America give up on that? America wants hostages back for PR value. I don't know how quick. Biden might just pop his cork and call him on the phone and say, look, I'm giving you so much and you're going to bust my back about a bunch of hostages. Give them back or I'm finished with you. That could happen too. So the situation is fluid a little bit, and it's really tense. In the middle of this, on Tuesday, Saudi Arabia had more flash flooding and rains. And just to update you about this, Saudi Arabia deserts are breaking out with grass and crops because they've been getting hail and rain and snow for about 2 years now, a lot of it. Other countries have also been getting it. This is for my people yet to come, turning the deserts into productive agricultural land with streams, rivers, all of this going on. Yeah. Look for it. You'll see pictures of it. I mean, stuff's growing in Saudi Arabia in the deserts, which never happened before. Go figure. So we're going to go through the Bible prophecy. I'm going to take a break for a minute. And then we'll go through the Bible prophecy on this for those that are interested. For those that don't care about God and just want to defend themselves with prepping supplies and guns, I'm sure you're not interested. By the way, if you like the video, you should subscribe or hit the like button. They don't like to show my video again to people that are not subscribed. I'm not exactly a favorite child on this social media platform. Anything but. So if you tell your friends and families, that would be helpful. My audience is a very small audience because people don't like the truth. Okay. So, Zechariah 12 is Israel's next war, not Gog and Magog. When you read the Gog and Magog war, which is found in, let's say, Ezekiel 38 and 39, amongst other places, Israel is at peace without bars and walls. Stop right there. Is Israel at peace without bars and walls? Are you kidding me? It also says that they come for a spoil because we have gold and silver and cattle and much goods. Guys, 28% of Israel lives at the poverty line. This is an absurd thing to say it's going to happen now. The book of Joel is Gog and Magog. It says when there is this invasion, which is actually the locusts, the land looks like the Garden of Eden in front of them and burnt over wasteland behind them. Okay? Does the land of Israel look that way now? No, it's dry and parched all over the place. No, it doesn't. And that's not something that's going to change because some guy comes out with a peace deal or something like that. No, forget that. You read Jeremiah 30, the birth pangs, Jacob's trouble. Great is Jacob's trouble, and he shall be saved out of it. This is the only passage in the Bible where it talks about Jacob's trouble. They're not saved out of Gog and Magog. The women are raped. The houses are looted. That ought to be bloody. Half of Jerusalem goes into captivity, which means they get taken away. Okay? So the two are very different. Okay? Don't think they're the same. So what happens in Zechariah 12? You can read it for yourself. I'm going to give you a couple of highlights, okay? In verse 2, behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about it, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Now, a siege and a blockade are not very far away from each other, are they? No. They both involve a surrounding. Stopping the people from going in and out. This is not an invasion. If it was, great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it, wouldn't apply. They surround it. Now, who's not surrounding it? Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Iraqi militias, the Houthis. These people wouldn't just surround it, they would invade. They're full-blown warriors. They don't hold back. They're jihadists. They're fine with being martyred. They don't care. They wouldn't do a siege. Who's going to do the siege? The United Nations. America, France, UK, Germany. These are the people that are going to do it. First will come sanctions, and then will come this. They've already been putting sanctions on people that live in the West Bank because they don't like the way they treat the Palestinians there. Jerusalem, what Biden wants, what the UN wants, what the Pope wants, what they all want. It's Jerusalem to be a universal city, not to belong to Israel like it does now. Now, East Jerusalem is part of the West Bank, which they want to give to the Palestinians. East Jerusalem is the actual site of the true temple. They want to make sure, Satan wants to make sure, that Israel cannot get a temple going, at least in the right place. The temple needs to be in the right place. It can't be in the wrong place. So they take this. They might take all of Jerusalem away from Israel, and they'll make a Arab section for the Muslims. They'll call it Christianity section for the Pope and the Russian Orthodox and the Greek Orthodox and the evangelicals and all that. And they'll have a Jewish section, and they'll probably give West Jerusalem, the part we had before the 67 war, where the temple does not belong to us. And we will never be allowed to go on what they erroneously refer to as the Temple Mount and pray again, like it used to be before 67. And they'll give the West Bank to the Palestinians to be able to build another military base there to attack us, which wouldn't take long. A few weeks, they'd be attacking. The settlers in the West Bank would be doomed. I don't know how the heck they would be able to live under those conditions. They would probably run our military out and stuff like that. But their first move is Gaza. If America and the UN don't stop Gaza, we will finish off Hamas. They won't rise up again. We'll create a buffer zone on Gaza territory, and we will keep troops there to make sure they don't reattack us. And it's just a matter of time till Israelis move back in there. And that is the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. In no way, shape, or form do they ever want to see that happen. Okay? If these world leaders let that happen, Satan will have them overthrown and kicked out of office. To have a siege on Jerusalem, the tip of my finger is Jerusalem. This finger and this finger represent the West Bank, which wraps around Jerusalem. If those laying the siege don't have control of the West Bank, they can't lay a siege, an encirclement is what the word tends to mean in Hebrew, around Jerusalem. So they're going to minimally have soldiers in the West Bank. And it's not the crazy terrorists that are doing this. They do not have anywhere near the strength to do a siege. They can't do that. They don't have the control. The purpose of this would bring us to submission on some points. Okay? We wouldn't be allowed to leave Israel. Nobody could come into Israel. And they would try to hurt us with food, water, and all kinds of things, medical, by cutting everything off. And you see, Biden and these other big countries know what happened in 1948 forward. the Arab states attempted to attack and kill Israel and get us out of Israel, and they kept losing every time. So these more astute demonic leaders of the big countries don't want to try that. They want to do what they did with the Sinai Peninsula. They pressured Israel to give it back, and Israel did. They pressured Israel in 2008 to give the Gaza back, and we did. In 2006, we occupied 25 miles in Lebanon from the Lebanon War, and they got us to give it back with a UN decree that the Hezbollah cannot occupy from the Litani River to the border of Israel, which is not enforced. Now they want the West Bank, and they want East Jerusalem, if not all of Jerusalem. And they want to keep us basically neutralized that way. And there would be horrible economy in Israel, worse than Netanyahu already has done. He'll keep making it worse, so the next one will, so people got to keep leaving. Terrorism will rise probably by 8 or 12-fold, so it'll be dangerous to go out in the streets and stuff like that. So they're going to try to just drive us out of Israel. Okay? It's not going to work. And I'm going to show you why. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. It's not just the Muslim terrorist states. I don't even think that, the UK and France and America and all of them are going to even let them in the seas. They don't trust them. They're infidels to these terrorists. They're not going to trust them. And what happens? In that day, saith Jehovah, I will smite every horse with astonishment. That word is sus, which could mean a swan, which flies, or horse. It could be the way of representing airplanes and tanks and things like that. With astonishment, and his rider with madness. And I will open my eyes upon the house of Judah, and will smite every horse of the people with blindness. Now in Gog and Magog, the horses get killed, and the birds and the beasts eat them, because God's saying he's giving them a sacrifice. They drink the blood and eat them. Here they're just getting blindness, which could be revoked eventually. Or not, I don't know. But they're not killing them and serving them to the beasts. It's not Gog and Magog. It precedes. And the governors of Judah, those are the judges, as the word means, shall say in their hearts, the inhabitants of Jerusalem are my strength. And then they twist the words up. It says, Jehovah of hosts Elohim. In that day will I make the judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour, the word is better translated burn up. They shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left hand. And Jerusalem shall remain still in its own place, even in Jerusalem. Now, who do you know has fire coming out of their mouth but the two witnesses? Let's read it again. I will make the judges of Judah, they say governors, it's judges. The judges are prophets. The two witnesses are prophets. They're the only two prophets coming. Prophesying as a gift of the Spirit doesn't make you hold the office of a prophet. It's a very, very powerful office. I will make the judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall burn up all the people round about on the right hand and on the left hand, and Jerusalem shall remain still in her own place, even in Jerusalem. They have the words messed up in the translation from the Hebrew. That's what you got. And those are the two witnesses. And they could emerge any day. Elijah and Apostle John. And they burn the enemies up. Let's keep reading. Jehovah also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. There's no rapture here. You don't see Yeshua here. Okay? It's two judges. Yeshua is not two people. You know, you don't see Yeshua and Jehovah. None of that. And the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. In that day shall Jehovah defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. Well, David killed Goliath and a lion and a bear, and the feeble, the old people, are going to fight like that. They're going to fight, and the house of David shall be as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. That's the angel that was with Moses, Aaron, and the children of Israel in the wilderness. Michael, the glory of God of Israel. He killed 150,000 in one day. It doesn't literally say we're going to be killing here, but it does in other scriptures. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Israel. Now, it doesn't say nations, it says heathen. So they all get destroyed. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplications. Whoa! They never teach this in the church. God pours his spirit out in them. Now they're believers. What happens next? And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him, one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Ramon in the valley of Megiddo. It's Megiddo. And the land shall mourn, every family apart. Now, when Yeshua got killed, did the families of Israel mourn? No! This is just a reference point. By saying they shall look upon the one whom they have pierced, New Testament people know it's Yeshua. The Jews don't understand that. They don't think it's Yeshua. They don't understand what it is. You do, they don't. It's not taking you back to the time of the killing of Yeshua. It's a way of a veiled way. The veil is still on. It's a veiled way of showing us who Yeshua is, and they'll realize it once the Spirit is poured out on them. The veil is removed. Now, since the Spirit was poured out on them, they're believers now, right? How can you deny that? Now, let me read you a scripture that you're not going to understand too well, but it's in the Bible. And I'm telling you, if you stop believing the Bible, you may as well start reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead. John 6:40, and this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. Everlasting life. When he pours his Spirit out on them, they're believers. Then they look upon the one whom they have pierced, and they have everlasting life. Now, someone's going to say, oh yeah, the millennium when they're raised up. Well, Let's go to John 6, 54. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood. Now, those are believers, because the flesh is the bread of communion and the blood is the wine of communion. These are the believers. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So it's saying the same thing. Now, let's go to Malachi 4, and you see it again right here. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wicked shall be stubble, and the day cometh that cometh shall burn them up, saith Jehovah of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branches. For unto you that fear my name, which means they're believers, shall the Son of Righteousness, that's Yeshua, it's S-U-N, Shemish, not S-O-N, Ben, it's Son of Righteousness, the bright and early morning star. Arise with healing in his extremities, and you shall go forth and frolic about as calves from the stall. That's the eternal life. And you shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith Jehovah of hosts. There it is. It's right there. The same thing. When you see him, you shall be like him. He has eternal life. You're going to see the risen Christ. The sign of the Son of Man shall arise, in the clouds. It's a miraculous appearing of him. He will come, that will see him like lightning from the east to the east to the west, in the clouds, seated on the right hand of power, which is his Father, Jehovah. That's what the Bible says. And we're very, very, very close. Very, very close. If we go to Malachi 3, we can see that we're pretty close again. What we see here is, behold, I will send my Malach, my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. Well, John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah in him for birth. When they asked John the Baptist if he was Elijah, he said no. Yeshua said Elijah truly had come, but they didn't listen to him. They did what they wanted to him. Okay. He had the spirit of Elijah. This is Elijah himself coming this time. It's not saying the messenger with the spirit of Elijah. It's saying my messenger, my Malach, and he shall prepare the way before me, meaning the return of Yeshua. And Jehovah and Adonai, the Lord, which is the glory of God of Israel that goes in the next temple, whom you seek shall suddenly come to his temple. Even the Malach, the messenger of the covenant, now it's back to Elijah. The Jews believe Elijah will teach them Torah, and he will. And he'll probably start with who Yeshua is pretty easily. Whom you delight in, behold, he shall come, saith Jehovah of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire and like a fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, the Levites, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto Jehovah an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem, see, we don't have the 10 tribes here yet. This is what's here now, Judah and Jerusalem, what we have now. And the offerings of Judah and Jerusalem shall be pleasant unto the Lord, as in the days of old, as in the former years. Now, there's a thing called the blessings of the law in Deuteronomy 28. And they went when they win all the wars. And look what happens. Elijah's training the Levites. It's talking about the next temple. The next temple comes down from heaven. It's not New Jerusalem. It's the next temple. I know the difference. And I'll prove it to you. We'll go to Ezekiel 37. Last three verses, verse 26. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. That peace is shalom. Yeshua was the shalom offering, which is a lamb. The sin offering is a steer. He's not a steer, he's a lamb. But to have peace with God, you have to have forgiveness of sin. So it fits together. A peace with them shall be an everlasting covenant. Well, I told you everlasting life, everlasting covenant with them. And I will place them and multiply them. Now, the word for place is Strong's number 5414, okay? And the word is Natan. And multiply them, that means lots of children. And then it says, will set my sanctuary. Well, the word for set is also Natan. They translated it different to throw you off. Let's read it like they did 6 or 7 words previous. And I will place them, that's in Israel, and multiply them, and will place my sanctuary. Okay, the word for sanctuary is mikdash, temple. And they confuse you, that there's mistranslations. In the midst of them forevermore. No, the temple ain't leaving unless the word, you don't want to believe the word. Now listen to this. My tabernacle also shall be with them, yea. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, Jehovah, do sanctify. Now, the word for sanctify is not really sanctify. It's kadosh, which means holy. Kadosh Kadashim is holy of holies. Holy, kadosh singular. Kadashim plural. Kadosh. So I will make holy Israel when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. So let me ask you a question. If a bunch of rabbis smacked together a temple, would the heathen think that Jehovah sanctified Israel because they built the temple? Of course not. But if God placed it there or set it there, it means he put it there. Then it came down, and that's the house made without hands. Why is it a house? Because the glory of God of Israel, lives in there. Now, I believe what happens is first we have the tabernacle, and Elijah trains the Levites to do the offerings correctly. And then we go into the blessings of the law, and then the temple comes. The temple may not come until after Zechariah 12 is over, but it probably doesn't. But it's enough because we don't see the glory of God of Israel playing a role in this siege. So it probably comes later. Now, just to help you, we'll go to Ezekiel 43. Remember that people are going to say, oh, we're the temple. You're the temple of the Holy Spirit. Get the words in the scripture straight. You're not the temple with the offerings, the sacrifice, with the priesthood and all that. That's not you. You're the temple of the Holy Spirit. Afterward, he brought me to the gate, even the gate that looketh towards the east. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel. Now in Exodus 23, this is the angel that God said he places his name, Jehovah, in this angel. And if God places his name, Jehovah, in the angel, you can call the angel Jehovah because God put his own name in this angel, which is Michael. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel came from the way of the east. and his voice was like a noise of many waters, and the earth shined with his glory. Arise, shine, your light has come, the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. When Moses was with this glory of God of Israel, he shone so much they had to put a veil over his face. Moving on. Verse 3, Ezekiel 43:3. And it was according to the appearance of the vision which I saw, even according to the vision that I saw when I came to destroy the city. And the visions were the visions that I saw by the river Kabar, and I fell upon my face. This is Ezekiel was involved in the captivity with Babylon for 7 years, and he was in the captivity. Okay, 43 verse 4. And the destroy the city means God does nothing until he reveals it to his prophets first. So he revealed to Ezekiel he was going to destroy those in Jerusalem that did not go to the Babylonian captivity, and he had Ezekiel prophesy. That's what that means. Verse 4. And the glory of the Lord, the Kabod Yehovah, came into the house, and that word is bite, it's a house, by the way of the prospect towards the east. So he's coming in the eastern gate. So the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner court. Now there's an outer courtyard and an inner courtyard in Ezekiel's temple, and the description of Ezekiel's temple doesn't match any of the prior temples. It doesn't match Solomon's temple, nor Zerubbabel's, nor Herod's. The glory of God of Israel never stepped foot for even a second into Zerubbabel or Herod's temple. He went into Solomon's temple just to anoint it with the glory cloud and then left. Here he lives in there, he stays in there. With the tabernacle, he met by the mercy seat with Moses and Aaron inside there, but the tabernacle was collapsible and movable. I think the tabernacle will appear first, and it's when you read 2 Maccabees 2, it explains Jeremiah hid it in a cave in Mount Nebo and then sealed it up until the time God shows mercy to us. And what's in there is the Ark of the Covenant, contrary to that churchianity, money, selling you, making merchandise out of you by selling your stuff, run wild. It's Jeremiah hid it because he knew the Babylonian captivity was coming, so he hid it in Mount Nebo. The Ark of the Covenant, the altar of the incense, and the tabernacle, and he sealed it up so no one could find it until the time. So I would speculate it would take a prophet to open it up, and we got two of those, Elijah and Apostle John, that'll take care of it. So the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of Jehovah filled the house. And he went in. And I heard him speaking unto me out of the house. And the man stood by me, and he said unto me, Son of man, the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever, and my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile, neither they or their kings by their whoredom, nor by the carcasses of their kings in the high places. In their setting of their threshold by my threshold, and their post by my post, and the wall between me and them, they have even defiled my holy name by their abominations that they have committed. Wherefore I have consumed them in my anger. Now, let them, I want to check something. Now let them put away their whoredom and the carcasses of their kings far from me, and I will dwell in the midst of them forever. So there's a condition here. Thou, son of man, show the house, that's bite, and this is the next temple, to the house of Israel, that they may be ashamed of their iniquities, their lawlessness, and let them measure the pattern. And you see, if this was Gog and Magog, they've already would have been past this. This is probably fairly immediately after Zechariah 12, maybe the next day or even the same day, I don't know. And if they be ashamed of all that they have done, show them the form of the house and the fashion thereof, and the goings out thereof, and the coming in thereof, and the forms thereof, and all the ordinances thereof, and all the forms thereof, and all the laws thereof, write it in their sight, that they may keep the whole form and the ordinances thereof, and do them. Well, it's written in the Bible. This is the law of the house upon the top of the mountain, the whole limit. Now, the mountain is not there yet, Mount Zion, but it will be. God will have to build it and put it there, probably in a second or something, because soldiers dismantled it many centuries ago. He'll put it back miraculously. So what this is it's not giving them instructions as to how to build the temple like Moses was given instructions. It doesn't say make the door out of this wood, this high, this wide, this thick, this color. The floor is this big and it has this color, and make it out of this tile or this stone or this wood or this that. It doesn't tell us the dimensions of the windows, where they are, what they should be. Yeah, well, we don't have any of this stuff. Nothing. Because we're told roughly what the temple will look like and the rules. So we know, like on Shabbat, we go in this gate and go straight flow out another gate, and this type of thing. So that's all we're given. So we don't build it. Now we do build the altar. In verse 13 it says, and these are the measures of the altar after cubits. A cubit basically goes from the center of the hand down to here. And it tells you how to build the brazen altar, which sits in the inner courtyard. Near the, it sits, let's see, it would be east, kind of southeast of the steps to go actually inside the temple. So there you have it, okay? Now you know more than the churches do after hundreds of years. All right, so let me look at the chat. Let me see if I have questions, because I will.
That's the beauty of clay, is it does hold moisture. Yeah. Oh, thank you. That thing's gonna be covered. Six come from another. Oh, thank you. It's gonna be covered with.
Tanks called war horses in the past. Good comment. Good comment. I didn't delete your comment. You hit the word filter. You put something in there that triggered the word filter. Yes. If you send it to me by email, my email address is up at the top of the chat. I can put it in. How can people with everlasting life multiply? Are we then not like it? Well, there's rising from the dead is the reference when you study it carefully, where they're not going to be able to reproduce. When they go from this life from the corruptible to the incorruptible body, it doesn't seem to apply. That's the best I've come up with studying it, and I think it's valid. Oh, we got more of the haters here. Let me get rid of them. Yeah, it's Jordan. Yeah. Jordan's going to be Israel pretty soon. A lot of Jordan, anyway. Yeah, the angels are spirits. They don't have any type of a flesh body. Yeah. Okay. When Yeshua rose from the dead, it wasn't that way. He said to Thomas, stick your hand in my side. I'm not a spirit. Touch me. And then he prepared fish. He caught fish and cooked fish to feed to the disciples, and he ate the fish with them. I don't believe angels as spirits eat fish. I don't know. I can't imagine that would be applicable, so I doubt they do. Okay, so I hope I've given you a good taste. I'm going to stop here, so I'm not going to make these too long because I think it's detrimental to the people. It's too much. So what I do is I give you the current events with the Bible prophecies. If you want more and you want to see my updates when when the eggs begin to hit the fan, subscribe. In any event, please give me a like. It helps with the YouTube ratings. And please pray for me and my wife for a peace, safety, protection, joy, and healing. And pray for our animals and pets, which are all rescues. They be happy, healthy, and whole. And I have a prayer request. I'm having trouble getting some online banking set up so I can move some money. It's not that the bank is giving me any problem per se. It's the website app technology that's giving me the problems, and they don't know really how to overcome it. Like I log in and it sends me an email, a new device is logged into your account. But when I look at the web page, it says something went wrong, try again later. But yet it still sends me an email that it's logged in, but I can't do anything. So it's not that the bank got an axe to grind with me or I did something wrong. It's the technology is against me. I don't know what to do. This has been going on a long time already. And I'm trying to get support, and I don't know how well that's going to work. So please pray I'm able to get this to work. Thank you. And I might start doing shorts again, short videos, on different themes and topics. I'm thinking of beginning it again. So I used to do them. I'm probably going to do them again. So again, another reason to subscribe. So please pray for better videos and pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I hope I'm helping you. I'm trying. And offerings would be extremely much appreciated. You guys, if you're getting fed and you don't do the offerings, you're riding on the other people, and that's not right. And there are people that do give me support, but it's a very small pittance. So I appreciate that. And since we're coming up on Shabbat, I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And my email address is up at the top of the chat too for questions or whatever you need. And I got under an hour. Wait a minute. I got over an hour and a half, but under 2 hours. Okay, I'm shrinking the videos. I'm getting there. Okay, I'm out, guys. Thank you.